Millionaire man sees black maid breastfeeding his daughter and changes her life forever. She was sitting in the rocking chair by the window, her blouse unbuttoned, the baby tucked against her chest. The soft creak of the chair was the only sound in the room, aside from a rhythmic suckling. The sunlight edged her silhouette in gold, her face calm, eyes distant. She didn't see him standing there. James Whittaker froze in the doorway. For a moment, his mind couldn't catch up to what he was seeing. The maid, Dion, his maid, was nursing his daughter. His daughter. His voice caught in his throat, half a question, half a breath. The room spun. He took a step forward. "What the hell are you doing?" Dion didn't flinch. She looked up at him, eyes steady, wide but unafraid. "She was crying," she said softly. "Wouldn't stop." He didn't hear her. Not really. All he could see was skin against skin, the impossible softness of his baby girl against another woman's body. "Did my wife know about this?" His voice cracked. Dion said nothing. The baby stirred, let out a little whimper, and nestled closer. James stared, unable to move. His heart pounded like it wanted to crawl out of his chest. "Answer me." His voice was quieter now, tighter, but Dion didn't answer. And the worst part, what chilled him to the core, was that his daughter looked peaceful, like she belonged there. 5 months earlier, James Whittaker sat at the polished oak desk in his home office, staring at a spreadsheet he wasn't really seeing. The numbers blurred together. He rubbed his eyes with one hand and took a sip of cold coffee. It was quiet upstairs. Too quiet. He pushed the chair back and stood, listening. Emma had taken the baby out earlier. She said she needed a walk. James didn't argue. They'd both been exhausted. Ava was born 2 months early. A surprise, like so much else lately. Emma had spent 6 days in the hospital after the birth, 3 of them crying. James didn't know how to help her anymore. She'd gone silent after they brought Ava home. Every attempt to talk felt like walking through fog. He did what he could, bought the best crib, hired a night nurse, took paternity leave. But nothing he did made a dent in her sadness. And the baby wouldn't latch. Emma tried everything. Lactation consultants, warm compresses, feeding pillows. Every time Ava screamed and twisted away from her, Emma looked a little more hollow. When Dion arrived, it was supposed to be temporary. She came on the recommendation of one of Emma's sorority friends, a quiet woman from Louisiana with calm hands and tired eyes. She'd worked as a housekeeper and nanny for years. "She's old school," the friend had said. "She knows babies. She'll help." James was skeptical. He'd built a company from the ground up, trusted no one but himself, and hadn't grown up around women like Dion. She was black, soft-spoken, and unshakably still in a way that made him uncomfortable. But Ava slept longer the first night Dion held her. By the end of the week, Emma had given Dion full run of a nursery. It was like watching someone else raise his child, James thought. But he didn't stop it. He didn't know how. He had grown up rich but not soft. Boarding school. Ivy League. Built his first company out of a basement with 3 laptops and a broken coffee maker. When his parents died in a car crash in his 20s, he barely flinched. The world was a cruel place. You learned to bite first. But fatherhood made him feel small. Helpless. Sometimes he'd wake up at night and hear Ava crying through the monitor. But Emma never moved. And neither did he. Dion did. She was always there first. It started to grate on him. The way Ava reached for Dion's hair. The way she calmed in her arms. The way Emma watched from a distance like she wasn't part of it anymore. One night, James walked into the nursery and found Dion humming to Ava, low and soft. Her back was to him. The song was something old. He didn't recognize it. But Ava had stopped crying. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked. Dion turned, surprised to see him. "My mother used to sing it," she said. James nodded, then left. He didn't know what to say. Weeks passed. The house settled into a new rhythm. Dion and the baby, Emma and her quiet, and James slipping between rooms like a ghost. No one talked about the way things were. Until that day. Until he came home early from a client meeting, found the house quiet again, walked upstairs, and there she was, his maid, breastfeeding his daughter. Now, standing in that nursery doorway, James tried to process it all. But he couldn't. He felt betrayed, confused, terrified, and underneath all of it, something darker. Why did it feel like Ava belonged to Dion more than to him? Why didn't she cry when Dion held her? And the question that rose like bile in his throat. What the hell else had been happening in this house without him knowing? The baby stirred again, her tiny fingers curling against Dion's chest. Dion rocked slowly, her eyes still locked on his. She looked so calm. Too calm. James stepped into the room, his fists clenched. He didn't know it yet, but this moment, this one impossible moment, would change all three of their lives forever. And nothing that came next would be easy, or clean, or forgivable. The door closed behind him like a prison gate. James stood in the hallway, heart racing, pulse in his ears, hands shaking. What just happened? He leaned against the wall and tried to breathe. His mind kept looping that image. Dion's eyes, the curve of Ava's tiny body pressed to her chest, the faint contented coo of his daughter suckling like she was born to it. He wanted to march back in there. Yell. Fire her. Call someone. He didn't know who. A lawyer? Child Protective Services? But he didn't. He walked downstairs instead, into the kitchen. The house was spotless, like always. The granite countertops gleamed. The floor smelled faintly of lemon oil. Dion had cooked earlier. Cornbread, something with okra. The scent still hung in the air. He opened a bottle of bourbon, poured 2 fingers, and drank it too fast. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. What the hell was she thinking? What kind of woman does that? And yet, a part of him, the quiet part, the scared part, knew Dion had done what neither he nor Emma could. She'd fed Ava. She'd soothe her. James stared into the glass and didn't recognize the man looking back. 3 days earlier, everything had still felt normal, or as normal as it could, given the state of the house. Emma hadn't left their bedroom in 2 days. She claimed she had a migraine. James had let her be. He brought her water, checked in, even offered to call the doctor. She said no every time. Dion took care of everything. She moved like clockwork, always quiet, always calm. James found himself watching her more than he meant to. Not in a leering way. At least he didn't think so. He just noticed her. The way she cradled Ava with one arm while folding laundry with the other. The way she hummed without thinking. The way Ava smiled up at her like she was the sun. Why doesn't she do that with us? He asked once. Dion looked up, caught off guard. Babies feel things, she said. Tension. Sadness. They don't know what it is, but they feel it. You saying we're tense? James tried to joke. She didn't smile. I'm saying she needs softness. Doesn't mean you're bad people. Just means she's hungry for warmth. James didn't have an answer for that. Later that night, after Ava went down, James walked into the kitchen to find Dion wiping the counters. The air between them felt different, thicker, charged. He hesitated, then said, "How long have you been with us now?" Dion looked up. 2 months this week. He nodded. You've been good with her. I mean that. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. You can call me James. A long pause. Then, softly, all right, James. He looked at her, really looked. Her face was plain but strong, with eyes that didn't flinch. She stood taller than Emma, and sturdier somehow, like nothing could knock her off her feet. You ever have kids? He asked. Her mouth tightened. I did. James froze. I'm sorry. She nodded. Me too. He waited, but she said nothing more. Just returned to wiping the counter, slow and methodical. He left the kitchen without another word. The morning it happened, the moment, started like any other. James had a meeting in Manhattan. He left early, suit pressed, coffee in hand, and barely said a word to anyone. But the client canceled last minute. Something about rescheduling. James was annoyed, but a little relieved. He hadn't slept well. He decided to go home, surprise Emma, maybe talk, maybe try. The house was quiet when he walked in. Too quiet. He called for Emma. No answer. Called for Dion. Nothing. His gut twisted. He walked upstairs, pushed open the nursery door, and there she was, breastfeeding Ava like it was the most natural thing in the world. Now, hours later, James stood in the darkened living room, the bourbon bottle half empty beside him. Emma still hadn't come out of the bedroom. He hadn't told her. He didn't know how. Upstairs, Dion moved quietly in the hallway, the creak of floorboards soft as breath. James looked up. He had a choice now. He could fire her, report her, make a scene, or he could ask her why. And he could listen, because deep down, he knew this wasn't just about milk or Line's crust. It was about a woman filling a space no one else had the strength to fill. And that terrified him more than anything. The next morning, he knocked on Dion's door before the sun came up. She opened it fully dressed, eyes tired but sharp. "Can we talk?" he asked. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stepped aside and let him in. Neither of them knew it yet, but from that moment on, there would be no going back. Only forward, into whatever storm was coming next. The guest room where Dion slept was small, tucked at the end of the hall like an afterthought. It smelled faintly of lavender and baby powder. No clutter. One suitcase in the corner, zipped tight. The bed made with military precision. A photo sat on the nightstand, an old one, faded, of a boy in a school uniform. His smile was wide and crooked. James glanced at it but didn't ask. Dion closed the door gently behind him. "Talk," she said, folding her arms. She stood like she was bracing for impact. James sat on the edge of the chair near the window. His mind raced, but nothing he rehearsed on the way there came out right. "I want to understand," he said finally. Dion nodded, once, like she'd expected that. Not an apology, not a threat, just a man confused, maybe hurt, trying to put the pieces together. "You came into the room," she said. "You saw me feeding her." "I did. And it upset you." "Of course it did," he said, sharper than he meant. "You didn't ask. You didn't even tell us. You just did it." "I didn't plan to," she said calmly. She was screaming. "Wouldn't take the bottle. You and Emma were gone. I held her." She rooted. James flinched. He knew what the word meant, but hearing it felt strange. Animal. Intimate. "And you're lactating? After all this time?" Dion's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed steady. "I lost my son last year. He was 7 weeks old. Car accident. My body kept producing for a while after." James blinked. "Jesus." "I took something a few weeks back when Ava stopped eating," she added. "Fenugreek. Other things. Just enough to bring it back. Enough for her." James stared at her. His thoughts tangled in a dozen directions. Guilt, anger, grief that wasn't his, and something else, deeper. A slow, gnawing question rising in his chest. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. "I didn't think you'd let me." "You're damn right we wouldn't." "I wasn't trying to replace anyone," she said. "I was trying to keep that baby from starving." James stood, pacing. "You don't get to make that decision. She's our child. She's your daughter. But she's not okay. Emma can't hold her. You won't touch her. That girl's crying her lungs out while the two of you float through the house like ghosts." He turned sharply. "You don't know what we're going through." Dion looked him in the eye. "I know pain. I know what it looks like when a woman's holding on by a thread." Silence fell like a curtain. James sat again, slower this time. He rubbed his eyes. "This isn't how I pictured any of this going." "No one pictures it like this," Dion said softly. James looked up. "You miss your son?" "Every hour." The words hit like a punch. And just like that, something in the room shifted. Not forgiveness, not even understanding, but something cracked open between them, an exposed nerve. A shared ache. Later that day, James sat in the car outside a coffee shop, watching people pass. He was supposed to meet a potential investor here. He cancelled. Instead, he stared at the steering wheel and thought about Emma. She hadn't held Ava in nearly 2 weeks. Even before that, her touch had gone stiff. Like the baby was made of glass. The sound of crying sent her into the bathroom. Lights off, door locked. James had stopped knocking after the 3rd time. He remembered once, years ago, watching her hold their friend's baby at a dinner party. The way she cradled it with such warmth, her voice light, her smile wide. Afterward, in the car, she looked at him and said, "I can't wait until it's ours." He wondered where that woman had gone. Back at the house, Emma was asleep when he walked in. Her eyes fluttered open as he stepped into the room. "You're back early," she murmured. "I cancelled the meeting." She sat up slowly. "Something wrong?" He hesitated. "James." He sat on the edge of the bed. "I saw something yesterday." Her face stiffened. "What?" He looked at her carefully. "I came home early. I saw Dion in the nursery." Emma said nothing. She was feeding Ava. A pause. A long one. Then, I know. James flinched. You what? Emma looked at him, eyes rimmed with dark circles. I ask her to. Silence. You ask her. Emma nodded. She wouldn't eat. I didn't know what else to do. I can't do it, James. I tried. You should have told me. Emma's voice cracked. I didn't want to see that look on your face. What look? The one you have now. Like I failed. He swallowed hard. Emma. I wake up and I can't feel anything. I hold her and she cries harder. I thought it would feel like magic. Like it does in the movies. But I look at her and all I see is everything I don't know how to be. James took her hand. It was cold. I'm sorry, she whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't know how. That night, James sat outside on the back porch, a blanket over his legs, bourbon in hand. The baby monitor crackled on the table beside him. Dion's voice came through, low and sweet, humming again. He closed his eyes and listened. In that moment, he didn't know what was right anymore, only what was real. And real was this. The woman upstairs had done the unthinkable, and saved their daughter in the process. But something about it still felt like a wound. Not just to him, to all of them. Upstairs, Dion rocked Ava in the dark, eyes fixed on the far wall. She knew what she had done. She also knew what was coming. Not everyone survives being a savior, and not every wound heals clean. The next morning, the air felt heavier, thick with unspoken things. James came down to the kitchen just after sunrise. The house was still, the floors cold under his bare feet. Dion was already there, standing by the sink with her back to him, rinsing a bottle under warm water. He hesitated at the doorway, then cleared his throat. She didn't turn. Emma told me. He said, still nothing. Just the running water, slow and steady. She said she asked you to do it. Finally, Dion turned off the tap. She set the bottle down and faced him, arms crossed gently over her chest. I figured she might, she said. James stepped into the room. Why didn't you tell me she knew? Because she's the one who needed help, not you. That stung. Maybe because it was true. I could have handled it, he said, unsure if he believed it. Dion gave him a long look. Could you? James looked away. He didn't want to admit how many times he'd walked past Ava's door without going in. How many nights he let her cries echo while he buried himself in a spreadsheet or bottle. I don't like what you did, he said finally. I didn't ask you to like it. But I get it. She nodded slowly. That's something. James ran a hand over his face. He looked tired, older than usual. What now? He asked. I keep doing what I was hired to do, Dion said. Take care of your daughter, until you and your wife are ready to. There was no judgment in her voice, just fact. It made James feel smaller than any insult could have. That afternoon, James took the day off work. He stayed close to home, mostly wandering between rooms, watching from the edges. He checked in on Emma, who was out of bed for the first time in days. She was sitting in the nursery, rocking slowly in the chair, staring at the empty crib. I want to try again, she said when he stepped in. James raised an eyebrow. With feeding. With holding her. Just holding her. He nodded. Okay. Will you help me? He knelt beside her and took her hand. Of course. She looked different than she had the day before. Still pale. Still hollow. But there was a flicker of something behind her eyes now. Determination, maybe. Or desperation. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference. Later that evening, James sat across from Dion in the living room. Ava was asleep upstairs, and Emma was taking a long bath. The TV was off. The room was quiet, except for the tick of the clock on the wall. You said your son died in a car accident, James said softly. Dion didn't flinch. He did. Do you mind if I ask, what happened? She looked down at her hands. They were still, folded in her lap. We were driving home from church. Rain came down hard out of nowhere. Someone ran a red light. Hit us from the side. James swallowed. I'm sorry. He was in the back seat, sleeping. A pause. I woke up in the hospital. They told me he was gone before the ambulance even got there. James leaned back, the weight of it all pressing into him. I don't talk about it much, she said, because when I do, people either cry or walk away. I'm not walking away. She looked at him, eyes sharp. "You're thinking about it." He didn't argue. "Being around Ava," she said slowly, "I didn't mean for it to be so close. But when she cried like that, like my son used to, it did something to me." James nodded. "She isn't mine," Dion added. "I know that." He met her eyes. But for a minute, maybe it felt like she was. Dion's throat worked as she swallowed. "For a minute, yay." They sat in silence. "She saved something in me," Dion said after a while, "and maybe I gave something back." James nodded slowly. "I think you did." Upstairs, Emma stood at the edge of the crib, watching Ava sleep. Her hands trembled, but she didn't pull them back. She reached down, slid one finger along the baby's cheek. Ava stirred but didn't wake. Emma let out a breath she hadn't known she was holding. "I missed you," she whispered. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I'm sorry it took so long." Behind her, the door creaked open. James stood in the doorway, watching. "You okay?" he asked. Emma turned, nodded. "I want to try feeding her again. Tomorrow." He smiled. "We'll figure it out." She walked to him, buried her face in his chest. For the first time in weeks, he held her tight. Later that night, long after the house went quiet, Dion stood in the dark by the nursery door. She didn't go in, just listened. She could hear James and Emma talking softly inside, the baby rustling between them. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She knew what was coming. The closer the baby drew to her real parents, the further she would be pushed back. It was right. It was what she wanted. And it was going to hurt like hell. Because some part of her, deep, quiet, hidden, had started to believe this was her second chance. But second chances don't last forever, especially when they were never really yours to begin with. The next morning started quiet, but it didn't stay that way. At 6:45 a.m., James was woken by the sound of Ava crying through the monitor. Not just fussing, full-blown, red-faced howling. He sat up, heart pounding, and reached for the baby cam. The screen lit up to show the empty crib, the pale wall behind it, the slight motion of Ava's limbs thrashing under her blanket. No one else was in the room. Not Dion. Not Emma. He threw the covers off and bolted down the hall. By the time he got to the nursery, Dion was there, bouncing Ava gently against her chest, whispering something low and soothing. Her hair was wrapped up in a scarf, eyes still swollen from sleep, but her hands were steady. James stood in the doorway, catching his breath. Dion looked up at him. She woke up early. "I heard." Ava's cries softened into hiccups. Her little fist curled around the collar of Dion's shirt. "She's still hungry," Dion said softly. I didn't feed her. I waited." James nodded, unsure what that meant anymore. "I figured it wasn't my place now." "It never was," he said, then instantly regretted the sharpness in his tone. Dion didn't react. She just rocked slower. "She needs to eat." James walked in, unsure of what he was doing. "Emma wants to try today. She said she'd start again." Dion gave a small, unreadable nod. "Good," she said. They stood there in silence, Ava nestled between them, her whimpers fading into soft breaths. Then, without meaning to, James said the quiet thing out loud. "She reaches for you more than us." Dion blinked. "She reaches for who makes her feel safe. And you think we don't?" "I think you're both trying. But trying and being are different things." He let that sit. "Then, what happens when she starts crying again and Emma can't calm her?" Dion's expression didn't change. "Then I'll be here. Until I'm not." Emma sat on the edge of the bed, arms folded tight across her chest. Her robe hung open at the collar, her eyes scanning the line of bottles James had placed neatly on the dresser. "I want to try nursing," she said again, like she was convincing herself. James sat beside her. "We'll take it slow. If she doesn't latch, it's not a failure." Emma's laugh was hollow. "That's easy for you to say." He reached for her hand, but she didn't take it. Her gaze stayed fixed on the baby monitor, the soft, grainy image of Dion swaying with Ava in her arms. "Do you think she's going to let go?" Emma asked quietly. James hesitated. She said she would. Emma gave him a hard look. "But do you believe her?" He couldn't answer. By noon, the house had grown quiet again. Emma sat in the nursery, cradling Ava in her arms. James watched from the corner. Dion stood by the door. Ava twisted, whimpered, fussed, Emma held her closer. Sure, baby. It's okay. It's Mama. The baby rooted slightly, then pulled away. Emma's shoulders tensed. James stepped forward. Try again. Just relax. I am relaxed. Another try. Another pull away. Ava let out a sharp, angry cry. Her arms flailed. Emma's lip trembled. I can't do this. You can, James said, gently. You just have to keep. I said I can't, she snapped. The room fell still. Ava's cries filled the space like a siren. Dion stepped forward, slowly. Let me take her. Emma looked up, eyes glassy. Of course you want to. That's what you've been doing since day one, isn't it? Emma, James warned. But Dion didn't flinch. I'm not trying to take her from you. Really? Emma stood now, Ava still in her arms, her voice rising. Because it sure feels like it. You've been nursing her behind our backs, rocking her, singing to her, letting her call you Mama. She doesn't call me that. She would if she could. James stepped between them. Stop, both of you. But the damage was done. Emma turned, thrust Ava into James's arms, and stormed out. The baby shrieked louder now, thrown off by the chaos. James tried to calm her, rocking back and forth. Dion moved forward, arms half raised. James shook his head. Not now. She stopped in her tracks, nodded, and stepped back. James held Ava tighter, her cries piercing. No one said anything more. That evening, James found Emma in the bathroom, sitting on the closed toilet lid, a towel wrapped around her like armor. She was crying, quietly, the kind of crying that doesn't stop when someone walks in. I feel like I've already lost her, she whispered. James crouched down in front of her. You haven't. She looks at me like I'm a stranger. She just needs time. Emma shook her head. She doesn't cry like that with Dion. James didn't know what to say. She looked up at him, eyes red. Do you love her more than me? What? He said, startled. Dion, do you love her? No, he said quickly. Too quickly. Emma looked away. I love you, he said, more slowly now. But I don't know how to fix this. She touched her face, wiped at the tears. I don't know if it can be fixed. He reached for her hand. This time, she let him. That night, Dion packed a small bag. She didn't say anything to anyone. Just a few clothes. A worn Bible. A bottle warmer. Nothing else. She walked down the hall and stopped outside the nursery door. She placed her hand against the wood. I was only supposed to help, she whispered. But you made me believe I could be something else again. Ava stirred behind the door, but didn't wake. Dion didn't open it. She turned and walked away. By the time James and Emma came down for breakfast the next morning, she was gone. No note, no goodbye, just the sound of an empty room behind a closed door. And in that silence, one question burned through the house like a spark waiting to find flame. What happens now? James found the bag first. It was sitting by the door, half concealed behind the coat rack, like she hadn't meant for it to be seen. Small, neat, like everything Dion did. It stopped him cold. He knelt, unzipped it halfway. Nothing inside but a few folded clothes, a Bible, a pair of soft baby socks, Ava's. Not Dion's. Emma, he called, voice tight. She was in the kitchen, bottle in hand. She didn't look up right away. Did you check if we're low on wipes? I think. She's gone. Emma froze. What? James turned the bag toward her. She left, took everything, except this. Emma set the bottle down with a hard clink. When? I don't know. Sometime last night. She stared at the bag like it might explode. Did she say anything? No note. Nothing. Emma turned slowly and walked out of the room. James followed. Where are you going? To check. But Dion's room was empty. Bed made. Window cracked just enough to let in the morning breeze. The photo of a little boy was gone. Emma stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't speak, didn't move. James watched her, waiting for something, anything. Finally, she said, You think I pushed her away? He exhaled. I think we all did. Emma shook her head, blinking hard. She didn't belong here, James. This wasn't her home. No, he said, but she made it feel like one. They tried to settle into a routine without her. Emma gave Ava every feeding that day, even the mid-afternoon one where the baby wailed and twisted and refused the bottle. James tried to help, but he could see the panic blooming behind Emma's eyes. "She hates me," she said through clenched teeth. "She's 2 months old," he said gently. "She doesn't know hate." "I didn't mean that," Emma said, eyes wet. She doesn't know me." James took the bottle from her, tried to coax Ava into drinking, but she cried louder. Her face turned red, body rigid. Emma stepped back, hands shaking. "I can't watch this," she said. "I need A." She was gone before James could stop her. He rocked Ava for over an hour, whispering every story he could remember. Told her about his father, about the first time he saw Emma laugh in college, about the night they brought her home from the NICU. Eventually, she slept, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a reprieve. By the 3rd day, the cracks were showing. Emma wasn't eating. James worked in short bursts but couldn't focus. The house felt wrong, too quiet, like someone had turned the volume down on their lives. Everywhere he looked, there were traces of Dion. The folded wipe cloths in the drawer. The song Ava only fell asleep to, the one no one else could hum the same way. The rhythm of the house was off, like a clock running without gears. That evening, after Ava finally settled, James sat on the back porch with a beer and his phone. He hadn't told Emma what he was about to do. He opened his messages, scrolled until he found Dion's number. Then he typed, "You left without a word. Are you okay?" He stared at the blinking cursor. Then he added, "We're not." He hit send before he could talk himself out of it. No response. 10 minutes. Nothing. He checked again at 20. Still nothing. At 45 minutes, he stood and went back inside, jaw tight, phone still in his hand. That night, Emma woke him with a whisper. "James." He sat up, heart thudding. "What?" "She said something to me. The day you found out." "Who?" "Dion." James rubbed his eyes. "What did she say?" Emma stared at the ceiling. "She said, she needs you. But she needs the whole you, not the one afraid to hold her." James blinked. "She wasn't just talking about me," Emma added. James lay back, silent. And she was right, because as much as he'd been angry, shocked, afraid, he hadn't fought for Ava either. He let Dion take that space. Let her do the hard parts. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Out of not knowing how. Now that space was empty again, and Ava was still crying. The next morning, James stood in Dion's room, alone. He looked around once, then walked to the nightstand. Opened the drawer. There was a note tucked under the liner paper, nearly hidden. His name was written on the outside. Just his. He opened it. "I wasn't trying to take anything from you. I was just trying to give something back to the world before I forgot how. You don't have to forgive me. But please remember that none of this was for me. I hope someday she grows up and knows how much she was loved, even when nobody could show it the way they wanted to. Take care of her. She already knows who you are. She's just waiting for you to see it too." No signature, just a line at the bottom. "Don't come find me unless you're ready to see why I really stayed." James sat on the edge of the bed, the letter trembling in his hand. "Emma," he called. No answer. He read the last line again, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "What does that mean?" The question stuck with him like a hook, because deep down, he knew there was something more, something he hadn't seen yet. And now, Dion was gone. But not for good. Not if he had anything to say about it. James didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, the note open on the nightstand beside him, replaying each word like a code he was supposed to crack. "Don't come find me unless you're ready to see why I really stayed." He didn't know what it meant. Not exactly, but it felt like a warning. Or a day. By sunrise, he'd made up his mind. He got up, dressed quietly, and went downstairs. Emma was already in the kitchen, standing at the sink with Ava on her hip, bottle half empty in one hand. She looked tired, but present. "She ate," Emma said without turning. "Half an ounce." James paused. "That's something." Emma finally looked at him. "Where are you going?" He grabbed his keys off the counter. "I'm going to find her." Emma didn't ask who. She already knew. She left for a reason. "And I'm not trying to drag her back. I need to talk to her." Emma nodded, slow and unreadable. "Do you want me to come?" James hesitated. "Not yet." She nodded again. You'll call me. He kissed Ava on the forehead, then turned to Emma. I'll call. Dion hadn't left many clues. No address, no forwarding contact, just that one small note, and the lingering pieces of a woman who'd lived in their home for 2 months and somehow changed everything without ever raising her voice. He didn't know where to start until he remembered the envelope she'd once carried. It had come from a church in the Bronx. James had seen her open it in the kitchen one afternoon when she thought no one was looking. He drove there now, cutting through early morning traffic, the city not quite awake yet. Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist. Small, red brick, tucked between a boarded-up laundromat and a pawn shop. James parked across the street, sat in the car for a minute, and watched. He wasn't sure what he was expecting. A sign? A sense of certainty? Instead, he got an older man in a wrinkled black suit sweeping the steps out front. James crossed the street. Excuse me, he called. Sorry to bother you. The man looked up. You lost? I'm looking for someone. Dion Hayes. The man straightened slowly, leaning on his broom. You a relative? No, then I don't know you. James blinked. I just need to speak with her. The man squinted at him. You James. That stopped him. Yay. The man grunted, turned, and pushed open the church door. Come in. Inside, the sanctuary was dim, the air cool and still. The man gestured to a pew. Sit. James Saturday. The man leaned on the edge of the altar steps. She said you might come. Told me to watch for a tired-looking man with a nice watch and a nervous mouth. James gave a humorless laugh. That sounds about right. You want coffee? No, thank you. The man nodded. She's not here. Left yesterday. Did she say where she was going? No, but she left something. Said it might help you understand. He walked to the back room, returned with a padded envelope, handed it over. James opened it slowly. Inside was a single folded sheet of paper and a small black USB drive. He looked up. What's on this? The man shrugged. Didn't ask. Don't want to know. Dion don't give away parts of herself unless she's sure someone's ready to carry it. James nodded. Thank you. The man nodded once, then looked him in the eye. You got a baby, right? I do. She's still hungry. James hesitated. Not as much. My wife's trying. We both are. The man's face softened. Good. But she wasn't just feeding your baby. You know. I know. The man gave him a long, quiet look, then went back to sweeping. James walked out into the morning light, the envelope tight in his hand. He didn't wait until he got home. He drove to a parking garage, pulled into an empty space, and opened his laptop. Plugged in the USB. One folder. No name. Inside, a single video file. He clicked it. The screen lit up with Dion sitting in a plastic chair, camera slightly tilted. Her hair was tied back. She wore no makeup, no smile. Just those still, steady eyes. She started speaking right away. If you're watching this, I left. And I know that might feel like a betrayal. But I couldn't stay and wait to be erased. Not again. James leaned forward, every muscle tight. I lost my son in April of last year. You know that part. What you don't know is, I used to work for a family in Westchester. I stayed with them through 4 kids. 12 years. She looked away from the camera. Her throat moved. When my baby died, I was alone. Not a single card. Not a call. Nothing. I gave them everything, and when I needed something back, they had already moved on. Silence. I didn't think I'd ever do this kind of work again. But something about your ad. I saw the way you wrote about Ava. How scared you were. And I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd be different. She looked back into the lens. You were. For a while. James swallowed hard. But then I saw it happening again. I was filling a space too well. Too completely. And the more she reached for me, the more your wife looked through me. The more you started to wonder what I'd done wrong just by being there. She took a breath. I didn't stay for the paycheck. I stayed because I saw a little girl who was starving for more than milk. And I knew what that hunger felt like. I fed her. I loved her. But I also knew you'd never let me keep doing that without losing something else. She paused. I wasn't trying to take her from you. I was trying to remind you she was already yours. Then, softer. And I left because I wanted to give you the chance to finally take her back. The video ended. James stared at the screen. His heart beat in his throat. She hadn't asked for forgiveness. She hadn't begged to be seen. She had just told the truth. And now he had to decide what to do with it. Because Dion had fed their daughter, held her when they couldn't, loved her without asking anything in return. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, she'd healed a wound in them neither of them had known how to name. But she'd also left. And Ava was still waking up crying. And Emma still hadn't held her long enough to get her to sleep. James closed the laptop, sat back, and asked himself the hardest question yet. Was he brave enough to tell Emma the whole truth? And if he did, what would they do with it? James drove home with the USB still burning in his pocket. The kind of burn that comes from knowing too much, too suddenly. He didn't turn on the radio, didn't call Emma, just drove, eyes fixed on the road, brain replaying Dion's voice over and over. You were, for a while. I stayed because I saw a little girl who was starving for more than milk. And I left because I wanted to give you the chance to finally take her back. He pulled into the driveway just as the sun started to dip behind the house. The windows were glowing orange. Inside, it looked warm. Normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. Emma met him at the door. You were gone all day, she said. He held up the USB. I found her. Emma blinked. What? I went to the church in the Bronx. The one that sent her mail. Her eyes narrowed. She left you that. He nodded. And a message. Emma stepped back, let him in, didn't ask for more. Yet, the living room was quiet. Ava was asleep upstairs. Finally, there was a half-drunk cup of tea on the table, a pipe rag on the couch arm. James sat down. Emma sat across from him, elbows on her knees. Do I want to know what's on it? She asked. I think you do, he said, but it's not easy to hear. Emma looked at the USB like it was a detonator. Then tell me instead. James took a breath. She made a video. Told me why she left. Told me why she stayed. Emma's voice was cautious. And she said she'd done this before. Worked with another family for over a decade. Raised their kids. And when her son died, they didn't even call. Emma flinched. She said she thought we might be different. Emma sat back. Slow. Were we? James looked at her. For a while. They both sat with that. She wasn't trying to replace anyone, he said. She knew what it looked like. Knew it would upset us. But she stayed because she saw Ava needed something neither of us was giving. Emma's voice was tight. You think I didn't want to give it? No. I think you were drowning. And so was I. Emma looked away. James leaned forward. She said Ava already knew us. She just needed us to see her. Emma ran her fingers through her hair, then down her face. And now she's gone. James nodded. She's gone. Emma stood up, paced to the window, then back. She fed her, she said suddenly. Like really fed her. With her own body. That's more than help. That's, she trailed off. Love, James said quietly. Emma turned. It makes me feel like I'll never be enough. She didn't say that. She didn't have to. Emma's voice cracked. I watched her do everything I couldn't. And Ava, she smiled for her. She looked for her. You saw it. James stood too. And she'll look for us now. If we show up. Emma blinked back tears. I don't know how. Neither do I. But we figure it out. We start. Silence. Then, Emma said, I want to see the video. He handed her the USB without a word. They watched it together. On the couch, Ava asleep in the monitor beside them. The only light came from the screen. Dion's voice filled the room like a haunting, gentle, steady, impossible to ignore. When the video ended, Emma didn't speak. She just leaned into James, slowly, her body stiff at first, then softening as he pulled her in. A long moment passed. Then, quietly, she asked, Do you think she still wants to hear from us? James hesitated. She told me not to find her unless I was ready to see why she stayed. Emma nodded. Are you? James didn't answer right away. He looked at the monitor. Ava shifted in her crib, then stilled again. I'm getting there, he said. The next day, Emma fed Ava for the first time without help. She cried the whole way through, but not from the baby. She held her longer than she needed to, let her fall asleep in her arms. When James walked in, He saw something in her face that hadn't been there in weeks. Not joy, not confidence, just connection. The beginning of something rebuilding itself. That night, after Ava was asleep, they wrote a letter together. It was short, honest, scared. Dion, we watched the video. You were right. We were scared. We let our shame and fear speak louder than our gratitude. Thank you for loving Ava when we couldn't find our way to her. You didn't replace us. You helped us find our place. If there's still room to talk, we'd like to. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who owe you more than we ever said. James and Emma. They didn't know if she'd write back. Didn't know where to send it. But James returned to the church the next morning and gave it to the man in the wrinkled suit. She might come through, the man said. Or she might not. James nodded. We'll wait. 3 days passed. No word. Then, on the fourth morning, the doorbell rang. Emma answered. A small box sat on the doorstep. No return label. Inside, a pair of baby shoes. Worn. Soft. Loved. A note folded underneath, in Dion's neat, round hand. She's walking soon. Make sure she knows who to walk toward. No signature. No address. Just that. Emma held the shoes to her chest and cried on the hallway floor. James sat beside her. Said nothing. Because some letters don't need a reply. They need a promise. And they intended to keep it. Ava took her first real steps on a Tuesday afternoon. Emma was on the living room floor, legs crossed, arms open wide. James crouched behind Ava, hands ready in case she toppled. For a second, she just stood there, wobbly, wide-eyed, her fingers flexing in the air like she was testing gravity. Then she moved. 2 steps, a wobble, a third, and she fell, laughing the whole way down. Emma scooped her up, breathless and beaming, tears already running. James caught it all on video. He didn't say much while recording, just a soft, broken laugh that sounded more like relief than joy. Later that night, they watched it 3 times in a row. Do you think we should send it to her? Emma asked, cradling Ava against her shoulder. James thought about it. About the note, the shoes, the silent goodbye wrapped in grace. Maybe not yet, he said. Emma nodded, brushing a curl off Ava's forehead. Okay. They were still learning how to stand on their own too. But Dion stayed in their minds. She showed up in the small things. In the way James warmed the bottle and tested it on his wrist, he had never done that before her. In the lullabies Emma hummed out of instinct, the same ones she once pretended not to notice. In Ava's smile when she saw the color yellow, Dion's favorite. They spoke about her more openly now. Not always with ease. Sometimes with guilt. Sometimes with gratitude. Once, James asked Emma, do you think we would have made it without her? Emma was quiet a long time. Then she said, I don't think we'd have known what we were losing until it was too late. And that felt true. Because Dion hadn't just fed their daughter. She'd held up a mirror, made them see their failings, made them brave enough to stop pretending. Spring came slowly that year. The kind of spring where the air is still cool, but the birds have decided winter's over anyway. Ava was just over 10 months now, standing, babbling, teething again. Emma took her to the park most mornings. James sometimes came along when work allowed, sitting on the bench beside the stroller with a coffee in hand, watching as Emma chased Ava across the grass. She was a different woman now. Still tired. Still quiet at times. But she smiled more. Sang without noticing. Woke up before the alarm and stood beside the crib before Ava even stirred. One afternoon, James came home to find the nursery rearranged. The chair Dion used to rock Ava in was gone. In its place was a bright yellow cushion on the floor, some picture books in a bin beside it, a new mobile above the crib, handmade from soft felt animals. Where's the chair? He asked. Emma folded laundry on the bed, not looking up. In the garage. You getting rid of it? Not yet. Just making space. He didn't push. But that night, after Ava was asleep, he sat in the garage for a long time, hand resting on the arm of that chair. It didn't creak anymore. And that, somehow, was the saddest part. 6 weeks after the shoes arrived, James got a call from the church. Thought you'd want to know, the man said. She came by today. James's heart lurched. Dion. She didn't stay long. Just ask how the baby was. Didn't say much else. But I told her you were asking after her. James swallowed. Did she say anything? The man paused. She said she's glad you're raising her now. Raising her? James repeated. She meant really raising her. He didn't respond right away. Then asked, did she leave anything? No, but she looked lighter. James nodded slowly. Thank you. He hung up, and just like that, the ache in his chest turned into something else. A release. Not closure, but acceptance. That night, after Ava went down, James sat on the back porch with Emma. The stars were out, the monitor between them glowing faintly. She saw the video. He said. Emma turned to him. You think so? I know so. Emma nodded, then looked at the sky. I still miss her. I do too. She didn't owe us anything, Emma said, but she gave us everything. James reached over, took her hand. We're going to be okay, he said. I know. And for once, she sounded like she believed it. In the months that followed, life slowly knit itself back together. Ava said her first word. Up. She learned to walk without falling, then to run. Emma went back to work part-time, confident now, steady. James stopped checking his phone every hour, stopped measuring his parenting in ounces and failures. The house became theirs again, not because Dion had never been there, but because her presence had made space for the kind of parents they were always trying to be. Every night, when Emma rocked Ava, she sang the song Dion used to hum. James asked her once how she remembered the words. I don't, she said, just the feeling. And that was enough. Sometimes love isn't about permanence. It's about presence. And Dion had been present at the very moment it mattered most. A ghost in the house. A blessing in the silence. And even though she was gone, she hadn't left. Not really. Ava's first birthday came on a warm, overcast Sunday. James hung paper lanterns across the back fence while Emma set up cupcakes on the patio table. They'd invited just a few close friends, nothing over the top. A handful of toddlers, wine, a camera fully charged, balloons tied low enough for tiny hands to swat. Don't forget the banner, Emma called, holding a roll of tape in her teeth. James laughed and hoisted the hand-painted strip that read, 1 year new, not 1 year old. Emma's idea. She said it felt more honest. We're not celebrating how long she's been here, she told James. We're celebrating how new everything still feels. Every single day. Ava wore a yellow dress. Of course she did. Emma found it in a boutique downtown. It reminded me of her, she'd said quietly, not needing to say Dion's name. James nodded. He thought the same thing. During the party, Ava toddled through the grass barefoot, shrieking with joy when bubbles floated too close. She tried cake. She fed some to the dog. She clapped when everyone sang to her. It was perfect, in that lopsided, messy, unforgettable way that only a child's first birthday can be. James watched it all with something close to awe. Not just at Ava, at Emma, at himself, at how they'd made it through a year that had tried so hard to break them in half. Later, after the guests had gone and Ava was asleep upstairs, James found Emma on the back porch, sitting barefoot in the warm dusk. She had the guest book in her lap, just a simple little book they'd left on the gift table for people to sign. Most of the messages were what you'd expect. Can't believe she's already won. She's going to run the world someday. Save this for her wedding. But tucked near the back, in handwriting neither of them recognized, was a different message. Emma turned the book toward James. He leaned over and read it out loud. 1 year new, and a lifetime ahead. Give her every minute. She already gave you yours back. D. Emma looked at him, eyes shining. She was hey. James took the book gently. When? Emma shook her head. I didn't see her. Maybe she slipped in while we were busy. James sat down beside her. She didn't stay long. She never did. They sat in silence for a moment, the stars just starting to blink through the night. She's still watching, Emma said finally. James nodded. And somehow, still helping. Over the next few weeks, things settled back into motion. Emma took Ava to music class on Thursdays. James built her a sandbox in the backyard and started teaching her how to splash in it without eating the sand. Ava called them both Dada for a week before sorting it out and landing on Mama with a delighted shriek one morning that made Emma cry into the egg she was scrambling. Life was still messy, still hard, But they weren't afraid of it anymore. They were in it, together, not watching it from across the room. One morning in late July, James woke up before sunrise. He padded down the hall and found Ava already awake, standing in her crib, wide-eyed and smiling. "Hey, bird," he whispered, scooping her up. She pressed her cheek to his chest and let out a content sigh. He carried her downstairs, made coffee one-handed, and sat with her on the porch as the sky shifted from indigo to pink. After a few minutes, he whispered, "You know she loved you, right?" Ava looked up at him, gurgled something like boo, and stuck a chubby fist in her mouth. James smiled. "Yeah," he said. "Exactly." He didn't know if she'd remember Dion, if a body would hold the memory of those arms, that hum, that soft warmth she'd clung to when the world was new and her parents were too broken to reach her. But he would remember. Emma would, and they'd tell her. One day, when she was old enough to understand, not just hear but feel, they'd tell her everything. About the woman who gave them back their daughter. About the moment they almost lost her, and the one that saved them. About the kind of love that doesn't need to stay to last. And Ava would know that her story didn't start with her parents. It started with a woman who saw hunger, and answered it with everything she had left. No applause, no spotlight, just a rocking chair, and a child who finally slept. And even now, long after she was gone, that quiet miracle still echoed through their house. In every laugh, every soft night, every step taken toward each other. A year and a half passed. Ava was 2 and loud. Loud in the way only toddlers are, running through the house in mismatched socks, talking to invisible friends, demanding music just to dance for 30 seconds before moving on to the next thing. James had never felt so tired, or so full. Emma too. She went back to work full-time, but always made it home in time for bedtime, for story time, for the kisses Ava handed out like candy. They had found their rhythm, and it was real. No longer fragile, no longer survival. It was a life. Theirs. But some nights, after Ava was asleep and the dishes were done, Emma would still say Dion's name. Not a lot, just softly, like a prayer. She would have loved this stage, she whispered once, while Ava lay snoring, curled like a comma in her crib. James nodded. Yeah, she really would have. They didn't say much after that. Didn't need to. Then, one crisp morning in October, James opened their front door and found a package on the step. No return label. No note. Just a small, hand-stitched quilt folded neatly inside. Yellow and cream. Squares patterned with sunflowers and rocking chairs and tiny blue footprints. James stood there for a full minute, unmoving, then called out, "Emma." She came to the door and saw it. "Oh my God," she said. They carried it inside like it was glass. On the back of the quilt, stitched in the corner with tight brown thread, was a single word. Always. That night, they tucked it around Ava while she slept. She stirred once, grabbed a corner in her fist, and pulled it to her cheek. Emma sat down on the floor beside the crib, chin on her knees. James joined her. No one said a thing. Weeks passed. The quilt stayed in the crib. Ava never kicked it off, not once. And though James and Emma never received another letter, another message, they both began to believe something quietly, deeply. That Dion wasn't trying to visit them. She was reminding them that she'd never really left. That what she gave could stretch across seasons, miles, even silence, and still arrive exactly when it was needed. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Emma picked Ava up early from daycare. They sat in the car together waiting for the thunder to pass, listening to the storm rattle the windows. "Wanna sing?" Emma asked. Ava nodded, mouth full of apple slices. Emma started humming an old tune. One Dion used to hum, though Ava had never heard it since. But Ava's eyes lit up. She joined in, messy, tuneless, perfect. And Emma's breath caught. "You remember," she whispered. Ava just smiled and clapped. That night, after the house went quiet, James found Emma in the hallway, staring at the photo they'd hung above the stairs. It was taken on Ava's 2nd birthday. Emma, James, and Ava all grinning, frosting on noses, arms wrapped tight. There was an empty space in the corner of the frame, bare wall, untouched. "We should put one of her here," Emma said. James looked at the space. "We don't have one." Emma nodded. "I know." They stood there for a moment, then James reached for her hand. Maybe we don't need a picture, he said. Maybe this whole house already remembers her. Emma leaned into him. Yeah, she said. I think it does. And in the stillness of the nursery, Ava rolled in her sleep, one chubby hand resting on the quilt, and above her, the mobile spun gently, sunflowers turning through the dark, almost like someone had tapped it on their way out. Winter arrived with a hush. The first snow fell overnight, blanketing the yard and muting the whole neighborhood in white. James stood by the nursery window in the early morning light, coffee in hand, watching the flakes drift down in slow, lazy spirals. Behind him, Ava slept bundled under her quilt, breathing deep and even. He still woke early most mornings. Habit, he supposed. But it wasn't dread anymore. Not fear, just presence. The house was alive in a way it hadn't been before. Worn in, held together by 100 tiny rituals: bath time, bedtime, story time, Ava's sticky fingerprints on the hallway wall, Emma's soft humming in the kitchen, James's low voice reading the same picture books again and again until Ava giggled and shouted, "No, Daddy, skip that page." Somewhere in all of that was something sacred, something saved. On Christmas Eve, they lit a candle for Dion. Emma set it on the windowsill, just above the kitchen sink. She didn't say anything as she lit it, just held the match until the flame caught, then stepped back and folded her arms. James stood beside her. "She'd be surprised you're lighting one for her." Emma smiled faintly. "She probably thinks we forgot." "We didn't. Not for a day." Ava toddled in just then, dragging a scarf twice her size, demanding to go outside. James knelt. "We'll go out soon, kiddo. It's cold." "Snowman," she insisted. Emma picked her up, spun her around. Okay, snowman it is." James watched them from the door. The candle flickered beside him, casting a long shadow on the windowsill. He thought about that first moment, the one he couldn't shake, no matter how much time passed. Walking into the nursery, seeing Dion in that chair, feeding Ava, the sheer wrongness of it. And then, slowly, the deeper truth. It had saved them. She had saved them. And what they felt, anger, shame, guilt, had only been fear in disguise. Fear that someone else had stepped into their place. But what Dion had really done was hold it until they were ready to step back in. That was the difference. That's what the world had missed when it judged her from a distance. She didn't take their child. She returned her. In February, Ava caught a bad cold. Nothing dangerous, but enough to keep James and Emma up for 3 nights straight. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't sleep unless one of them was holding her. She cried with her whole body, head back, fists clenched, as if grief lived in her bones. Emma rocked her for hours, whispering everything she could remember from the songs Dion used to hum. She got half the words wrong. Didn't matter. James made soup, rubbed Ava's back, carried her into the shower with him just to let the steam loosen her chest. On the 4th night, Ava finally slept. James and Emma sat on the nursery floor, too tired to move. "She's okay," James said. Emma nodded. "We did it." And she meant more than the fever breaking. She meant the yay, the slow climb back, the things they'd carried, and let go. One afternoon in March, a letter arrived. No return address, no signature, just a single page, folded neat and flat. James read it first, then passed it to Emma with shaking hands. "You don't have to wonder. I saw the video. I got the letter. I knew the moment you stopped needing me. And that's when I could finally start healing. You were never unfit, just scared. And I was never saving her. I was only holding the space where love would come back. It did. You should be proud. She's walking strong now. Not just on her feet, but toward you. I can feel it. I'm with family now. People who knew my boy. They say I smile in my sleep. I think that means I'm safe. Tell her when she's older. Not about me. About yourselves. About how you broke and rebuilt. And how she was never the reason for the pain, but always the reason you kept going. That's the story she needs." Emma folded it slowly, hands trembling, tears rising quiet and sure. "Do you think she really knows we're okay?" she asked. James didn't answer right away. He took the letter, held it to his chest, then whispered, "Yeah, I think she always did." Ava turned 3 that summer. She spoke in full sentences now, climbed furniture like it was a sport, and insisted on dressing herself, even if it meant mismatched socks and a tutu on Tuesdays. One day, she pointed at the rocking chair they'd moved to the corner of a living room. "Who's that chair for?" she asked. Emma looked at James, then knelt beside Ava. "It used to be for someone very special," she said. "A woman who helped Mommy and Daddy when we didn't know how to help ourselves." Ava thought about that. Was she nice? "The nicest," Emma said, brushing a curl from her forehead. "She made you feel safe." Ava nodded, satisfied. "That's a good kind of person." James smiled. "The very best kind." They didn't say Dion's name. Not yet. They didn't need to. Because love like that doesn't always need a label. It just needs to be carried forward. One step at a time. One lullaby at a time. One yellow dress. One warm quilt. One memory stitched quietly into the folds of a life finally lived out loud.